In the Spanish countryside, an audit visit is taking place. It's one of the European Court of Auditors' many audits. Luisa Gomez and Pedro Medeiros, the court's auditors, have come to Ciudad Real in Spain to check if the EU support paid to the farmer is correct. They need to check whether he meets the conditions for EU support and whether his flock of 6,000 sheep is correctly recorded. The sheep is separated into different flocks. And then the counting starts. The sheep counting is in full swing. Unfortunately, there are discrepancies.
En una finca de abajo, alrededor de 1.000 por cada finca, de entre 250 y 400.
So still more checking needs to be done. But finally, Luisa finds the discrepancy. Now all the results have to be reconciled with the local authorities. And the audit confirms that the farmer's records are reliable and his farm complies with the conditions for EU support. The farmer is relieved and Luisa's day is over.
Un día muy bueno. De hecho, tengo que decir, cada vez que se tiene contacto, los auditores tenemos contacto con los beneficiarios, salvo que haya problemas con lo que normalmente es excepcional, que los haya, aprendemos mucho. O sea, que ha sido un día muy bueno, sí.
The results of this particular audit are compiled together with those from around 1,000 other financial checks and published in the court's annual report. The headquarters of the European Court of Auditors is in Luxembourg. It's the independent external auditor of the EU and, as such, the guardian of the EU's finances. The court audits the implementation of the EU budget of €130 billion each year. The European Commission is responsible for the management of these funds. The court reports its findings and recommendations to the Council and to the European Parliament.
In doing so, we are also looking to serve the citizens of the European Union, safeguarding that their money is well spent and well used.
The court is made up of one member from each EU member state and is headed by the President. The European Court of Auditors carries out two main types of audits: financial and compliance audits, published in annual reports, and performance audits, published in special reports.
Financial audit is where we examine the reliability of the accounts, the annual accounts published by the Commission. And then we have compliance audit, where we look at the legality and regularity of the underlying transactions. So we do samples within these distinct parts of the entire expenditure side. And that's what you find in our annual report, a lot of information on that, which then builds into the overall opinion.
Financial and compliance audits examine whether the rules have been followed. Performance audits look at what the spending achieves.
The performance element is different. It's what has been achieved with the money. Has value for money been obtained from that spending? Have the objectives been achieved for the spending?
The court's performance audits cover a wide variety of topics. For example, food security and drinking water in sub-Saharan Africa, organic farm products, infrastructure of seaports, and reliable and credible EU statistics. The court's reports are published on the internet and presented to the European Parliament and the Council for further action. In the small town of Luleå in Sweden, there's a science park with a number of renewable energy installations co-financed by the EU. The Court of Auditors has sent Kurt Bungartz and his team to have a closer look at how these EU funds are being used.
We naturally go normally for such topics where the European Commission has really spent a lot of money in the last couple of years.
He and his colleague Jolita Korzunian are checking whether the project has been planned well and is likely to achieve added value with long-lasting results. This Swedish project intends to produce a kind of green diesel out of waste wood and use it as fuel for trucks. One of the aims of the audit is to assess whether investment projects like this have achieved good results. Kurt and Jolita have meetings with the city's administration since they have questions regarding the potential for European added value. The local representatives are doing their best to demonstrate the environmental benefits.
What we focus on is the value added of the EU activities, as well as the results achieved and the sustainability of these results.
This performance audit, together with a number of audits in other EU countries, will provide findings and recommendations that will help increase the effectiveness of similar energy projects across Europe. To get a better understanding of how the EU's finances work, let's have a closer look at the income side of the EU budget. Where does the EU money actually come from? EU revenue mainly consists of contributions from member states based on their gross national income and of value-added tax collected by the member states. The rest comes from customs duties and other revenue. And how is the €130 billion budget spent? The largest share of EU expenditure is on agriculture and rural development, mainly payments to farmers. Another important share is spent on regional policy, as well as on social affairs. The rest is spent on external aid, research, and the administration of EU institutions. Much of this expenditure is co-financed by member states, who share responsibility for its management with the European Commission. The court employs 900 staff of all EU nationalities. They don't just stay at their desks in Luxembourg, but spend around 15,000 days a year going directly where the money is being used, in order to check whether the conditions for EU support are being met and whether that support is producing results. The results of these audit visits are then analysed back at base in Luxembourg. In 2011, for example, the court's auditors found an error rate of 3.9% in the €130 billion budget. What does this error level mean?
We identify areas where there's a high level of irregularity, of errors. We make recommendations about how the systems can be improved to resolve those points. When the systems are then improved and the risks go down and the transactions become more legal and regular, so there are less problems. So it's not an immediate saving, but there's a long-term saving, which we've seen over the years in terms of the way that the results of the Statement of Assurance have been developing.
On the Luxembourg-French border, a new transport system is being inspected. Luc Thion and Lorenzo Pirelli are auditing a project that moves freight from lorries onto trains, taking them off the road. They pay special attention to the efficiency of this new technique, which has become an environmental pilot project. Since 2007, the EU has co-invested in this small cargo terminal, which loads thousands of tons of freight every year. But unfortunately, the terminal has already reached its full capacity. Luc and Lorenzo think that the project they have audited is successful, but the size and scale of the project may be too small to have significant environmental impact. They discuss the EU added value and the impact of the project with the local manager.
Here in this case we were looking at effectiveness of the Marco Polo program, which is one of the major impact programs of transport, because we are trying to get trucks off the road. So it's all about multimodality and how Europe is supporting that part of the policy.
This performance audit aims to improve the quality of EU spending and contribute to environmentally friendly transport of freight in Europe. The European Court of Auditors cooperates very closely with the national audit offices in both Europe and worldwide. Effective cooperation is very important as management of most of the EU funds is in practice shared with national authorities.
In questo caso in particolare noi siamo in una fase che vede una crisi economica talmente forte su scala mondiale, in particolare europea, che inevitabilmente sottolinea un ruolo particolarmente rilevante delle istituzioni di controllo.
Public audit has a key role to play in ensuring that the principles of accountability and transparency are adhered to whenever public funds are at stake.
Wir haben den Europäischen Stabilisierungsmechanismus, den ESM-Vertrag, ganz eng begleitet und es ist uns gelungen, eine konkrete Rolle für europäische Rechnungshöfe in dem ESM-Vertrag in einem Audit Board zu etablieren. Und das war nur möglich, indem wir es gemeinsam erarbeitet haben und auch auf der Basis von sehr vielen Kompromissen, die geschlossen wurden, ein Konzept erarbeitet haben, das es uns ermöglicht hat, hier im ESM-Vertrag eine konkrete Rolle einzunehmen.
The European Court of Auditors has a good working relationship with the European Commission, Parliament and the Council, as it's they who'll carry out the Court's recommendations for improvements.
The Commission takes the findings and recommendations of the Court very seriously. We analyze and reflect on them, and in the vast majority of cases, we use them to develop action plans to further improve the management of the EU budget.
Beschlüsse, die wir fassen im Europäischen Parlament, sollten immer so sein, dass wir mit einem Optimum an Sorgfalt das Geld der Steuerzahlerinnen und Steuerzahler Europas ausgeben. Und es ist die Aufgabe des Rechnungshofs, darauf zu achten, uns auch ein bisschen Druck zu machen, dass wir das ordnungsgemäß tun.
As the guardian of the EU's finances, the Court's work is key to ensuring that those who spend EU money are held to account.
We have the capacity and the competence to advise, to provide advice to those who are responsible to produce and deliver legislative proposals, to advise them to make the best use of the public funds to meet the European Union objectives.
The Court's recommendations help improve the functioning of the European Union. The European Court of Auditors works above all in the interest of its citizens.